Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Japan via Franklin, Tennessee, and the Williamson County Public Library. Thank you so much for being here today. We have got a great program thanks to Sister Cities of Franklin and Williamson County. Can we give them a hand? Thank you so much. These Sister City passport programs library's been participating in those for many years, long before I've been here, and I've been here 7 years, which is hard to believe it's been that long. But it is a great opportunity to learn a little bit about other cultures and other countries, and you are very fortunate today to be able to travel to Japan for a little while. And now, I'm Dolores Greenwald. I'm the director of the Williamson County Public Library, and also outside the doors on this side, there is some books on Japan. So if you want to learn further information, pick up a book and take it and check it out. Everything from art to haiku to some anime, so various kinds of books, so take a look. And now I'm going to hand it over to Sister Cities of Franklin and Williamson County and Sarah Light. Sarah.
Thank you. Thank you, Dolores, and thank you, Williamson County Public Library, for hosting these beautiful events. If this is your first time here, welcome. Wait, yokoso. And thank you for coming. Arigato. Nailed it. Mic drop. Okay, so if this is your first time coming here, please, we do these Passport to the Worlds regularly. We've had all sorts of countries, from Scotland to Moldova to India to, you name it, and we are having upcoming programs too. In November, we're going to do an international spices program. The Savory Spice Shop is going to come and help us figure out how to make our holiday meals even spicier and more international. And we have future guests from South Africa who, now you're stuck, you're gonna have to do it. And so please let people know that we're doing these so they come out. Today, I want to say, also first introduce the Sister City board members that are here. Tamara Phillips is here, raise your hand. And Patricia Kriebel is here. Now, they both work on the, yeah. And outside by the door is Claudia. What's her last name? Parker, thank you. Claudia Parker. So one of the things that Sister Cities does is exchange programs for high school students, and one of our sister cities is Bad Soden, Germany, and all of these ladies work on bringing exchange students here and sending them, and not just students, adults. So if you are an adult who has an interest in going to Germany, touch base with one of these folks. If you're a musician and you want to do a music exchange, we can do all sorts of things. We also have sister cities in Canada and in Ireland. So, so that's for you to know. And I also want to say thank you to the Consulate General of Japan of Tennessee's office, because they donated some of these pretty items over here. And we do have someone who's representing the consulate over here, which we'll be introducing our guests in a moment. I wanted to say thanks to my mom, Ina. Raise your hand, Ina. Ina, because I sat her down last week with instructions on how to make origami birds, and I said, make a bunch of birds so people can have them. So if you see any little origami birds, feel free to take them. Yeah, they're little birds. And I'm going to introduce our guests separately, but very quickly, we will have Meg Brown, who will be doing a general PowerPoint. We'll be having Yuka McLeod, who is standing behind her beautiful jewelry here that she has made, handcrafted jewelry. And she will also do a PowerPoint about Japan. And then we have Yoko Watsuki, who is our lovely helper here, who has made all this origami, brought all of that beautiful display from Japan for us today. And I can't thank you enough. And let's see. And then we also have some people for Q&A. Where's Pam Lewis? Is going to come. She was a student in Japan many years ago, and Thomas Ishii is back there. So we're going to be able to talk about the differences between Japan, living in the US, things tourists should know and not know, that kind of stuff. So it's all right here. And let's get started. Did I give you everything? Yes. Okay. So thank you all for coming again. And we're going to start with Meg, Miss Meg Brown. Come up here. And we're going to get a PowerPoint going. Oh, I know what I forgot. Hold on. I'm sorry, Meg. This is really important. Sister Cities is doing a celebration of nations. That's what's been scrolling. It's on October 12th. It's our big festival. It's our fundraiser to keep these programs going. If you want to purchase tickets to the VIP International Beer Tent, one of our members, the guy in charge there, Doug Sharp, just came in. But if you want to purchase tickets, you could do that online at Sister Cities. You can talk to Claudia in the back over there. But it's going to be at Bicentennial Park, not on Main Street. They've moved venues recently. So Bicentennial Park in downtown Franklin. And we really want you to take part in this. We're trying to create the international, to introduce people to the international flavor of Franklin.
Adding a few details, who has been to one of the previous versions of the Celebration of Nations? Wonderful, wonderful. You have an idea of half of what this year's event will be. The daytime portion is going to be very similar, phenomenal entertainment, as well as booths that are cultural and food-oriented and like, so you'll recognize that format very much. Also, in the evening, we're adding more of a street party, if you would, to the event, to add to that. And Sarah mentioned the ticketing portion. The whole thing is free the entire day, with exception of a tasting of international beverages, alcoholic beverages primarily, and food, and that is the ticketed portion, which is sort of a VIP tent kind of added layer to the evening performance of Rubik's Groove. Now that portion, whether you have appeal to it or not, that is our fundraiser. So this is the kind of the NPR moment, that if you have the opportunity and the willingness to support the organization in that means, buy a ticket, even if you don't have the direct desire to go, pass it on to friends, family, someone that you know that might have an interest in it. And look forward to seeing you there in summer all of the day. October 12th. Our main sponsor for the evening portion is Lippmann, and they're donating a lot of product that is very unique, that we're going to have tastings of product that really isn't available retail otherwise. So it'll be very unique, international based.
All right. Beautiful. Thanks, Doug. Thank you. Okay. I'm sorry, Meg. Come on down. All right. That was good. Don't trip on this. Walk right over here. All right. So I'm going to introduce Meg Brown. Meg comes to us as a Murray State professor. Are you currently?
Oh, no, retired.
Retired. Hold on.
Retired.
Oh, hold on. And she's going to give us some general. She is an avid traveler to Japan, So she made a beautiful PowerPoint for us that she's going to give us a little history, a little start. I'm going to get it going right here. And let me get her PowerPoint up. Next slideshow right there from beginning.
Okay.
Okay.
And
So if you want to move it, you want me to? I'll stand right here if you want to go out there, and I'll move it for you
okay.
if you want to, so you don't trip.
Let me try. Try that.
You want it? Okay. The lights, this one is a little better. We're doing sort of the lights a little bit up for the Franklin TV, which is here.
If you'd all like to shift over here, that'd be fine.
So, okay.
Okay, well, welcome to Japan. And just as a brief explanation, I'm an avid traveler to Japan, but also just an avid traveler. My husband and I have been to Japan 3 times. The first time, the university where we were both working sent us to China. And we said, oh, we've never been to Japan. It's on the way. Let's stop a few days in Japan. And so we did. Second time, my husband said, you know, I'm really interested in the snow monkeys of Japan. So we took a tour of the Japanese Alps so that we could see the snow monkeys. And we saw so much more, of course, than just the snow monkeys. And the last time that we went, my husband said, you know, the cherry trees, the cherry blossoms in Washington, D.C. are beautiful, but I want to see the originals. And so we did a cherry blossom tour in Japan. And that was about a year and a half ago in March, late March. And it was absolutely beautiful. So that's where almost all of these pictures come from, my 3 visits to Japan. Yep. It's an amazing country. I am blown away by the country every time I go, yeah. And I think the location is so relevant to today from our perspective. If you look and see where Japan is, of course, it is the land of the rising sun, which was the flag. But yeah, right there also. But it is very, very close to South Korea, North Korea, actually close to Russia, although I think not all Japanese consider that to be a fact, but they are, depending on where the islands, whose islands they really are. Okay? And a little bit up close and personal to Japan itself. You have a number of different islands, a few of the main islands. Of course, Tokyo is the capital, and then from north heading on south, Sapporo, and then Nagoya. You see a little bit smaller there because I had to add it. Kyoto, the old traditional capital, it was moved from there to Tokyo. Just below that is Osaka, a very major city, and then a little bit further away, Hiroshima. Okay, some facts and figures. I'll try not to bore you with too many facts and figures, but when you consider the population density of Japan, again, phenomenal compared to the United States. Per square mile, about 123 people per square mile in Japan, as opposed to 10 people per square mile in the United States. It is a small, very, very mountainous country. Approximately 75% of the land is covered with mountains. And I thought, Japanese Alps, you've got to be kidding. They're not kidding. They're beautiful. It has very limited natural resources. Very. And yet, the G7 is going on right now. It is in the G7, Canada, United States, England, France, Germany, Italy, and Japan. They work hard. It's a place of great traditional and innovative technologies. You're going to see is a lot of traditional, but that's not the only thing that goes on in Japan. I think you went. Yep. Nature in Japan is just beautiful. I never saw Mount Fuji like that. I've seen it several times from the air. It was cloudy when I went. But the other pictures I did take, and that is a picture of one of the snow monkey with the baby. Okay? The traditional architecture is fascinating. We went to a number of museums and traditional homes and traditional inns. You see that? Of course, they have the tatami, the woven straw mats. And when you enter a home, you do take off your shoes. They have very ritualized shoe protocol. Okay? But it's a very modern place as well. Really unbelievable. The top left picture I took from a skyscraper, looking down on skyscrapers. The lower left, the green, those are plants growing on the side of the building. And the right side is Nissan in the Ginza district in Tokyo. Okay? And this is a picture of Ginza district in Tokyo. To me, this says a lot about Japan right here. That sums it up. Okay. We went to a traditional village. It is an open-air museum. I believe people are still living there. But the thatched roofs are just gorgeous. Everything was beautiful. Okay? And then, of course, there are the Buddhist temples. You see them all over the place, and you begin to get a feel for them. We spent actually, I guess it was only one night, but in a Buddhist monastery. The picture in the top right, it was a whole complex. So it was not just in that building. We did not sleep in that building. It was very interesting. Paper walls and televisions in each room. Yep. Was it cold? It was very cold. It was up in the mountains. This was end of March, and it was cold at night, but they provided. We were all warm. Slept on the floor. It was wonderful. And the Shinto shrines. Okay. I just love this place. Miyajima Island, close to Hiroshima.
You took that picture?
And I took that picture, yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank you. And I've always been a sucker for castles, no matter where they are. So I just found the Himeji Castle phenomenal. It was gorgeous. So were the others. The traditional gardens, they have a rhyme and a reason for everything. Small, the country is small, they don't have a lot of room, they have a lot of mountains, they have a lot of people, and so things are small. But what they do with the gardens, et cetera, is just beautiful. Okay? And the traditional clothing. What's interesting to me is what they do, what they have and keep and wear traditionally. And then again, I also have this up here, some modern touches. I think some of the prints aren't exactly what would have been traditionally considered, would be considered traditional. And the picture in the far upper left, those are tourists. And what you can do, we found this also to be the case in South Korea. They have stores that rent the traditional everything. And you can go in there and they will fix your hair, fix everything, and then you can walk around and go to these places and then return everything. That's not me. And I mean, that is me, but I'm not wearing one of the rented things. I'll explain that one in a second. But those three young ladies in the top left, they were tourists. Yes, my husband and I, we were staying in a more traditional style hotel. We did that a number of times, and they leave these for you to wear to supper, or to eat.
Is this where you can tell the story about taking your shoes on and off?
Oh, you want me to?
Yes.
Okay. She asked for it.
It's a good story.
So in Takayama, we went to a museum. We entered the museum, and you take off your, there's a little entryway, you take off your shoes. We took off our shoes. We toured this part of the museum, and then you go through a courtyard to get to another part of the museum. So we didn't have our shoes on, but they have slipper-like shoes, so they're there at the door. We put those on to go to the second building. We had to take them off, of course, to go into the second building. We toured that, came out, and then put on those shoes again. I had to use the restroom. Third building. Wore those to the third building, had to take those shoes off to go into that building. Put on shoes inside because it is a restroom area. Put on those shoes and walked to the toilet. You take those shoes off, and there are shoes that you wear in the toilet room. You put those on, and then you reverse the whole process to go back, to back out. They take their shoes seriously.
Is it because of sacred ground, or is it?
I think a lot of it has to do with cleanliness. And I mean, street shoes, they get dirty.
Even you go home to somebody's house,
Yes.
they have, the people that live there,
Yeah.
and then there's a kid's slippers, and then there's a bathroom slippers, and different ones as well.
So even at houses, yeah, Yoko came to my house and she immediately took her shoes off. I'm walking around with my dirty sneakers and she's like, oh no, I'm gonna take my shoes off.
Okay.
Okay, let's go.
Can you go back one? The food. Very beautiful. Have a lot of ritual, a lot of tradition with that. Rice, I would say, is number one. Fish and vegetables. And I think it's only been about since the 1860s that the Japanese have been eating red meat. But you get an idea. A lot of tiny dishes, beautifully presented, lovely food. And sitting on the floor, of course. Yep. And then the beautiful rituals. We saw a number of weddings, pictures of just 2 different weddings up at the top, and then the traditional tea ceremony. And we were very lucky. We took the early cherry blossom tour, and a year ago in March, cherry blossoms arrived a week early. So we were fortunate. These pictures were all in Kyoto, but we saw cherry blossoms all over the country, all over. Absolutely gorgeous. And then there are the Japanese baths, another lovely tradition, different from what we're used to. These would be in the inns, for example, that we went to. They have public baths, and the men and the women are separated. And you go into first area, you disrobe, go into the first area, and that's where you wash off with the little benches and handheld shower. That's where you actually wash and rinse off. And then you go into the thermal bath, which I found so relaxing. Some of it's a matter of getting over our American inhibition, and it's worth it. It's worth it. You have indoor and outdoor. Okay? Okay, so that's a lot of it is traditional, but Japan, in so many ways, is on the cutting edge of technology. Was greeted in one hotel by the little robot there. The trains, of course, are the bullet trains. Wonderful, fast, clean, neat, precise. They line you up. They say you have your ticket, and you line up exactly, and the train comes in and stops, and your door is right there. And then inside of the Nissan store that I showed you earlier, Nissan building, with innovative Nissan car. Yep. Just a few brief words about the Japanese character. They are very, very diligent, hard. They work very hard, and they're very frugal. And they have the very deep cultural heritage. The Olympics in Japan, if I'm not mistaken, 64, and then 72, 98, and then there's next summer. And so Yuka was recommending maybe not go next summer. Might be a little bit crowded unless you really want to go to the Olympics, but keep it in mind. But I highly recommend that you get out of your comfort zone. Those onsen, the baths, are tremendous. They're wonderful. The language is different. Things are different, and that's the reason to go, to get to know these things. You don't have a problem as a tourist, I know, not knowing the language. It's okay. You get by just fine. Go to Japan. You can go to the next one. I do not speak or read Japanese. And so that first line on that ticket thing, you know, I said, oh. But then you see some similar characters over and over again. And I finally asked, what is that top left one? That's a really nice, neat little one. Well, that's person. Oh, that makes sense. That's good. That's cute. The second one isn't person, though. I thought, no. That means big. Big. Okay, that's good. I thought that last one was really cute. Small. So those, were my three. Then if you look over, and if you can put the cursor on the checked one. Oh, sorry. I moved it. Yeah.
It's okay.
Go back.
The cursor's there, but
Right there. Oh, it's not there. Okay.
it's not showing.
Okay. Right there, I got a ticket one time, and I said, well, that's interesting. What does that mean? Big person, little person. I got it. Adult, child. Oh, I was so excited.
That's great.
Okay. And so, thank you. Arigato. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. What beautiful pictures also. That's wonderful. So thank you for that introduction. Now we're going to move into something a little bit more detailed. Come up here. This is Yuka McLeod comes. And talking about speaking the language, Yuka had told me that she's lived here for 2 years. Okay? 2. Wait till you hear her speak English. Yeah, and I'm sorry, but it's going to blow you away. All right. But Yuka is kindly going to, let me get your Yuka slideshow, going to speak now on her favorite subject, I think.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. My name is Yuka. I have been here 2 years. No one's blown away. Look at them. So when I was asked to speak about the culture of Japan from a Japanese perspective, I thought to myself, oh man, you are asking the wrong person. I've lived, in Hong Kong, in Australia, and it was only up until I was 8 that I was in Japan, and then a little bit again in high school. If you could go to the next slide for me, thank you. And so I have a very unique sense of perspective on Japan. When I moved away to Australia for college, there was a sense of relief, just leaving home on my own. I'm going to do it all by myself. And it was a great experience moving away because it really helped me reflect on home from outside of Japan. And now that this opportunity has arisen again, it's hit me a little bit harder. There's still a little bit of relief. Being away from home, 2 flights away is close enough for me. And but then again, having to lose my grandparents, my father, it's hit me a little bit harder. And I'm beginning to reflect on, okay, what does it mean to be Japanese? What can I carry with me? And I realized that my roots, being Japanese, lay heavily on my grandparents. They are, to me, what embodies Japanese culture. They believe, they live, and they really live by the deeply rooted elements of Japanese culture day to day. Okay. And I've got 10, 15 minutes here today, so I'm going to focus on one thing that they had often said, and it's the word that's on the left corner called hakanai. And should we try saying it together? Hakanai. Yes, perfect. And the word hakanai means ephemeral, short-lived, scarce. And this encompasses, gosh, everything that we do, what we say in Japan. Next slide, please. So in the 15 minutes I have today, I'm going to touch a little bit about how this lives in each of the seasons, how we celebrate it, how we eat it, and just sing every day to it. Next slide. Thank you. So Japan is very fortunate to have 4 very distinct seasons, as Meg had explained a little bit, of which, of the 4, haru, or spring, is one that carries a larger cultural significance. Next slide. As the winter recedes and the rosy wave makes its way up, as you saw in Meg's PowerPoint, gosh, the entire country turns pink, and I love it because it's my favorite color. The beautiful cherry tree blossoms somewhere around the end of March, and if you're lucky, they linger till maybe the first week of April. They're very fragile, they're very sensitive, and so if you have this strong wind come through, they're all on the ground. So what you saw in Meg's slides, that was phenomenal. You went at the right time. Perfect timing. The exact time, okay, I've read that part. Next slide, please. So because of their frail nature, they're very, very hakanai. And so much so, they're so hakanai, and this is such a great part of Japanese culture that there are over 600 registered viewing spots in Japan. And this does not include the unregistered spots that the locals know. So people all around the globe and the country travel left and right, up and down to see these beautiful blossoms. Thank you. Amongst all of them, Ueno Park, which is located in Tokyo, has over 4 million visitors each year. I mean, that's crazy. So don't go to Ueno Park. Go find another park to view the cherry blossoms. Next slide, please. This hakanai-ness has become a large part of our seasonal celebration, that it really takes over Japan. It's of course, on the trees, but on our beer cans, on our chocolate boxes, on, things that we wear. Everywhere you turn to, it's blossoming in pink, and I think that's phenomenal. It's a way that we remember this hakanai-ness, and it's a way to celebrate and remember gratitude and show appreciation about something that's not going to last a very long time. Okay. In the summertime, this hakanai-ness is celebrated in forms of fireworks. Unlike the New Year's celebration here, you don't see 10s and 20s of fireworks go up at one time. It's really and you wait there. That was pretty good. I'm impressed. And you wait for about 10, 20 seconds, and you watch the fireworks really disappear into the sky. And this is another way of appreciating something that 1 second is very different from what it looks like a second later. This one here, I did not take that photo, but it's a tiny, tiny firework that you hold in your hand, and it flickers for about, 2 seconds if you're me, and then about 20 seconds if you're very good at holding still. And my grandma used to say, look for all the different colors, look for all the lines, look at all the different shapes that it makes. And it's a very peaceful, quiet moment that I spent with Grandma that I hold very close to my heart. So that's a little bit of my Japanese summer memories. Next, please. Oh gosh, that's huge. That's me up there. That's a. I didn't realize it was going to be a huge screen. Let's see. Of course, in the fall, similar to Hanami, people trek down and up all over Japan to see the fall colors from, multitudes of yellow to orange to red to brown. It's gorgeous. So this is one of my wedding photos that I took to try and capture that transitioning autumn palettes. And so I'm not going to have that on my wall. I'm a little, but I thought I'd come and share today. Next. In Hokkaido, they celebrate the winter months each year, sculpting through the deep, deep snow that accumulates each year. And amongst them, one of my favorites, this one here, it's cut off a little bit, but is a Japanese crane sculpted into, oh my gosh, I mean, these snow go probably, would you say higher than this room? I mean, it accumulates a lot. These Japanese cranes were deemed very rare and has long been a symbol of elegance and long-lasting relationships. And so even though we say repeatedly, embrace hakanai-ness, short-lived beauty, we really do hold the importance of holding on to long-lasting relationships. Okay. So between all the moves I've made, thank you so much, Claudia, for inviting me to this panel today. It's really given me an opportunity to think about, okay, how do I hold on to this? My mom's in Ibaraki Prefecture, which is 3 hours from Tokyo. My sister is all over the globe. My friends are all over the globe. How do I hold on to my Japanese-ness? And I've come up with a way, and that is by making some Japanese-inspired jewelry that I brought with me today. Next. Thank you. So this particular one here resembles that Japanese crane that I showed you earlier. It's also on my kimono. Each of my pieces hold a very personal story or a cultural significance to it. And by creating each and one of them and wearing them from time to time, it's been very therapeutic and a great way to share a little bit of my Japanese self. So if you're interested, please come and find your piece of Japan with Shiki. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. That was lovely. Thank you so much. What a beautiful, beautiful display. Yes, so this, Yuka's jewelry she will sell it to you today. You can walk home with a piece of her beautiful jewelry and her, like she said, a piece of Japan. Okay, so let me end this slideshow. And isn't this lovely? These are volunteers who are coming up here, Meg and Yuka, and we have another volunteer, Yoko, who, I don't see you anymore, Yoko. Ah, there you are. Hello. Please come up. And what is your friend's name also? Yuko? Okay. Come on. If you want to come, sure. Come on up. All right. Come. All right. I'm going to let me just turn this off for a second. Meg. Okay. Okay. And let me just close this down. I'm sorry, guys. Okay. So I know you want me to change that. Yoko's coming up to bring up some of her displays. So some of you who got here a little early were fortunate enough to see these two women coming, and they were making us little bookmarks. And they put your name on their bookmarks in calligraphy. And I think if you come up afterwards, they will, thank you, fix this, Thomas. I have to have my tech guy here. Thank you. All right, so, yeah. So Yoko, I've recently met her. She works with the Consulate General of Japan. If you didn't know, we actually have one here in this area, and it's in Nashville. But she also works with preschoolers and is just a wonderful diplomat for the country, and has graciously come here to show us some of her beautiful work. So did you come over here and talk? And I don't know this. Come and talk. All right. So I know you're soft-spoken, so hold that close. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
こんにちは. Konnichiwa means hello in Japanese. Could you say that again, please? こんにちは. Konnichiwa. Hi, I'm Yoko. I'm from Tokyo, Japan, and I was born and raised in Tokyo. So, and I moved here actually 6 years ago. I don't want to say that because my English is, sorry, please bear for me. Yeah, and well, I love here a lot. I love many aspects of Franklin, such as education, local people, and local foods, and library as well. I really love here a lot, and I'm so excited to be here today. And I've been teaching at preschool, as like Sarah said, and well, I've been doing that for 5 years, and with Yuko, and she's gonna help me again, like as she does at preschool, and yeah. And I'm gonna do some demonstrations of origami paper, as well as Japanese calligraphy. I hope you like it. We have different setting it at preschool, sorry. I'm going to try to accommodate it. Okay. So, does everybody know what origami is, right? Yeah. Have you ever tried it? No. Okay. So maybe you want to try it today. Well, first of all, I'm going to talk about the words of origami. Ori means folding, and gami is paper in Japanese. Gami sounds like gummy bear or something, but yeah, actually gami means paper. And there's two types of origami paper. This is the Western style paper, which has various color on it. And there's another type of paper called chiyogami, which got patterns on it. But each origami paper has color on the top, on the front side, and white color on the other side. Although the origin of the origami is not unknown, the folding paper began in Japan right after the paper production technique was introduced from China in the early 7th century. And that led the Japanese people create the origami culture later. At first, they used the paper mainly for copying Buddhist scripture. later, they started using paper for the ritual wrapped gifts for God. It just looked like this. Then they they realized that every time they wrap the gift, you can make the beautiful crease on it. And that's why they started, decorate it and folding the papers beautifully. And they started enjoying folding paper just for fun. And this is what we call origami. And then in the late 1800s, they started teaching origami during the art class at preschool and as well as kindergarten and elementary school too, for the education purpose. Believe it or not, most of the Japanese preschoolers and kindergarteners can make really, really good origami art in common. Let me show you origami art here. These are the origami arts that I made, which represents each month from January through December. In January, we celebrate New Year's Day and we decorate those decorations in each house. And in February, we celebrate one kind of festival, which is called Bean Throwing Festival. We try to get rid of the ogre or evil in our heart by throwing the soybeans, which is really fun for the kids. Most likely, the household with his father, each father will pretend like they are ogre. Then the kids throw the beans to father, which is kind of fun for the kids. And on March, we celebrate Girls' Festival. Every March 3rd, we celebrate Girls' Festival to pray for their health. And we display the special dolls in each house, and I wrote that. And you can see close to the entrance, so you may enjoy it. And in April, like Yuka said, we celebrate the beautiful cherry blossoms, and which is really gorgeous view. So I want you to come and visit Japan and enjoy it. And in May, we celebrate the Boys' Festival on May 5th. When I teach at preschool, in March, we celebrate Girls' Festival, right? So some of the boys are crying because they feel like, oh, we are out. But no, actually the boys will be celebrated on May 5th. And we also decorate the samurai dolls like that in each house and to celebrate their prosperity and to pray for their health, good health. And we also display the carp stream in each house. And in June, we have rainy season as you have, and which is not my favorite, but yeah, sometimes rain can bring us a good, beautiful, scenery with flowers, right? And in July, we enjoy, spending time at the beach. And in August, we have summer festival in Japan, which is the big deal for us. And we enjoy lots of treats there. And in September, we celebrate moon viewing because we believe that September is the best season of the year to watch the full moon, and which is true, actually. And we celebrate moon viewing in Nashville every year, so if you get a chance, please come and have a good experience there. We have food truck, and yeah, that's also another fun. And in October, lately we celebrate Halloween too, especially among the younger generation. In November, we have gorgeous turning leaves, and yeah, like Yuka said, and we really enjoy watching leaves changing the colors. And in December, we celebrate Christmas too. Okay, this is the whole year of this Peter Pan. Yeah. And I'm thinking to make, next we're gonna move on to Japanese calligraphy. Right. When you write English, you use only alphabet, right? And 26 letters, isn't it, right? But when you write Japanese, we use 3 types of characters. I wrote flower in Japanese right here. This means flower, this means flowers too, and this also means flower. And this type of the character called kanji, and this one is hiragana, and this one is called katakana. And hiragana and katakana has 48 letters in each. This is the chart of the letters. This is just the beginning. And kanji actually have 50,000 characters. Yeah. When the Japanese children enter elementary school, they learn hiragana, 48 letters first, then next learn katakana, another 48 letters. They finish learning hiragana and katakana quickly in the first half of the year, then move on to kanji, first grader. According to the regulation determined by Japanese Ministry of Education, Japanese students are required to learn and memorize 1,006 kanji before graduate from elementary school. Then, additional 1945 kanji by graduate from high school. As a whole, the Japanese students are required to memorize about 3,000 kanji. Yes, it's tough. But everyone in Japan goes through that process. Yeah. And calligraphy originated in China about 2,000 years ago and came to Japan in the 6th century and was an essential part of education for samurai and noble families back then. Do you know what this bag is? Actually, every elementary schooler have this and carry this with them. Let me open the box. This has everything necessary to write calligraphy. First, this is brush. And this is inkwell. And this is black ink made of carbon. Yeah, and this is the paperweight. Then we also get very thin and durable paper just for calligraphy. Before starting writing calligraphy, I'm going to talk about kanji a little bit, which is one of the characters. Okay. This character means mountain. It's because of the shape. this looks like mountain, right? And well, I actually want to do some quizzes. Are you ready? Guess what this letter means. The first question, number one. What do you? Oh, that's a good guess. No. What do you think? Oh, it's just so close. Oh, it's just close too. Yeah, very close. Oh, very close. Yeah, most likely that's the answer, I guess. Yeah, but very close though. I mean, it's not exact. Oh, a little closer. Yeah. Oh, someone said river. Yeah, the answer is river. Each stroke represents the current of the river. Let me do the next question. What do you think this letter means? Yes? Oh, that's a good guess. Do you think it's first? It's not first. You know some Japanese, right? Tree. Yes. Yes. The grass. Close. Yeah, this means tree. Next question. Question number 3. What do you think this letter means? Person using dancing. Yeah, I mean that's a great guess. I think because it's kind of connecting to some kind of moving, close, dancing. Something is dancing in this picture. Trees. You think trees? Oh, wing. Something is. Oh, yes! Fire! Yeah, it represents fire. What about this? It's a little harder than the others. Ladder. Oh! That's a great guess because you think that this can be like ladder, right? Yeah, but yeah, it's close. I mean, this is a really hard question. You see it in the sky actually. Especially quite close. Well, you can see it in nighttime. Oh yeah, yes, you got it. You nailed it. Yeah. Oh. All right. Last 2 questions. What do you think this character means? The garage? Oh, yeah, it looks like a garage actually, yes. The hint is these strokes. Wow, how did you get that? Yeah, right, yeah, the rain. That strokes represent the raindrop. All right. This is the last question. This is the hardest that I think. I think. Oh my God. You got it. Oh my God. So good at it. Yeah, the birds. Those 4 strokes represent the footprint of the bird. Yeah.
Konbawa is good evening. So I remember this because it was such an impactful trip. I went in 1976, so I was just a pup. I was just a little kid, and I was an exchange student, and it was before leaving high school and starting college. And I was an ambassador, and so we had classes before I went, and I went through the Lions Club Youth Exchange Program, and I was told that I needed to represent my country well. So which meant I had to be on my best behavior. And I wanted to not be an ugly American, and I wanted to really try to acclimate myself to the culture. So I learned as much as I could. We had little books to read, and we actually went into Japanese schools and taught. And then when I came home, we did some classes as well. So I'm from upstate New York, and if any of you have ever traveled to upstate New York, it is not just a big city. It's very rural. It's really pretty. And I went from this very rural little town to Tokyo, and just fast-paced, bullet train, Ginza, which is the electronic district, and it was a great cultural immersion, and talk about getting out of your comfort zone. So I'll tell you a couple of impressions. I have some kind of funny stories. One was, I was sort of raised to be very independent and be kind of, during women's lib and all that. So I remember I stayed with 2 Japanese families, and we would go out to a restaurant or something, and we were supposed to follow the father. The father was the leader of the family, and you were not supposed to, it wasn't like the father would open a door or you would walk arm in arm with the father. No, the father was the head of the family, and you were supposed to follow him. So I remember the one Japanese family that I was staying with, the phone was ringing, and the Japanese daughter was preparing dinner. And the father was sitting at the table with me, and all the father would have had to do was turn to the sideboard behind him and answer the phone. And the phone just rang and rang. And I thought, well, I'm sure as heck are not going to answer the phone. And if you answer the phone in Japan, here's what you say. Mashi mashi. That's how they answer the phone. Mashi mashi. So the daughter, I watched this whole dynamic, the daughter washed her hands, stopped what she was doing, traversed the room to answer the phone. Because at least back in 1976, it was very traditional, male-dominated culture. Of course, I was there for 8 weeks, so I had to take a bath while I was there. I had to bathe. So I am shown the bathroom, and there is no bathtub, there is no shower, there is just a tiled room, front floor ceiling tiled room. And I'm like, how's this work? So eventually I figured it out. So you're supposed to scrub yourself off, and then you were supposed to go into a communal soak tub, if you will, which I thought was really interesting. And this was, I guess, sort of the equivalent of like a hot tub. But again, it was very ritualistic. Another thing that just cracked me up is, what do we say? What do Americans say when we're talking as like sort of a segue, right? What do we say? What else? What else do we say? Right? Or do we say all the time? Japanese say na. It'll be blah, 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 na. Blah, 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 na. Over and over and over again. I'm like, it's sort of like, are you following me? Are you following me? And they also bow. So when you greet someone, you bow. So back in 1976, I suspect they're probably gone, when was the last time you saw a phone booth? But back in 76 were phone booths. So I can remember walking down the street, and there were people talking on the phone, and they're bowing, because it was just so customary for them to do. It was the first time that I was aware of being really different. I didn't look like anybody else there. And some of the places I went, I suspect it was the first time they had seen a Westerner. So I literally would have people come up to me and ask if they could touch my hair. And my hair was, there's pictures of me. By the way, I don't know how I found this book. I have all these scrapbooks. The first scrapbook that I put my hand on is the scrapbook from Japan. So you can see pictures of me in a kimono with my Japanese family. And you can also see me sobbing when I had to leave, just sobbing. So one of the ladies that I traveled with was Lisa Baxter from Algonac, Michigan, and that's how she talked. And Lisa Baxter was probably 6 feet tall. I am not exaggerating. She's really tall, really big Amazon woman. And bless her little heart, Lisa Baxter was also trying to learn the language. And so she would say things like, domo arigato, doshita shimashita, which means you're welcome. And they said, here's how you can remember that. Don't touch my mustache. Doshita shimashita. So I'm sure I'm bastardizing it, but I was a little better than Lisa Baxter from Algonac. So I decided I needed to have my hair done while I was there. And I went to this hair salon, and as I'm walking there, I hear this car have an accident behind me. And it was because I was walking, and the guy was staring at me, and he rear-ended somebody. This really happened. So I went into the salon, and I had a Japanese sister with me, and she's explaining what I want. And they didn't charge me because they were wanting to work with American hair. So I had all these crazy things in my hair. It was really great fun. It's kind of like showing off. Okay, let me show you this. These are called gaitas. Okay. Now, I have fat, wide American feet. Fat, wide Barney Rubble American feet do not fit very well in shoes like this. But because I was trying to be a really good Japanese exchange student, I put these son of a guns on. And we were walking, the family was walking, they gave me a summer kimono, so you're walking like this, you know, and I'm wearing these, and we walked from the house to this restaurant. I kid you not, I had blisters for 2 years after wearing these things. And they clip-clop, it sounds like a horse walking. This is another example of the traditional shoes. These are silk, and you can see the crane design on the top. Now, I bought these in an antique store, and I turned them over just this morning. It says November 18th, 1956. And it was presented to someone. It was signed on the back. It's kind of cool. Okay, one of the things that impressed me was the use of space. I mean, we have a big country. We're very wasteful. We don't recycle. They're just the opposite. They recycle. They're very careful about their resources. You probably have seen stories about the pods that Japanese businessmen rent, and they look like little, almost like a honeycomb, and they're just little pods that they would sleep in. But I remember traveling, and we were on a freeway, and I looked down, and it was a golf course underneath the freeway. Because again, you've got to use space wisely. Work ethic, incredibly disciplined, very reserved. When they first meet you, very reserved, but once you get to know them and they get to know you, lifelong, incredible hospitality, loving people. So once again, I was trying to be a really good American and not an ugly American. So of course there were no forks at the time, or I was discouraged from using a fork, and so I had to use hashi, which are chopsticks. So if you have a big piece of food and you're using chopsticks, it's really hard to cut it. So the same evening of the Getas in the blisters, we went and had sushi and sashimi. And I was encouraged to try Ika. Now, Ika is squid, am I right? Squid. Okay, so imagine this. Here is a piece of squid about this big. It looks like a piece of white lard. That's all I can tell you. And it's a little bit, very chewy. And I have this thing in my throat, and I am really trying to get it down, and I can't cut it. But I got it down, and I was like, okay, do not have an international incident with this Ika. But I do remember it very vividly, very, very vividly. What else can I tell you about? I visited Hiroshima. It was a very moving experience. And I think the Japanese people are very peace-loving people, having had the experience of Nagasaki and Hiroshima. But I can remember that when you visit Hiroshima, or if you visit, they have left the skeleton of one of the buildings, and I believe it's called the Diet Building. Is that correct? Yeah. And so it's a dome. It looks sort of like our Capitol, and it's all skeletal. And people literally were like vaporized, you know, when this happened. It was horrible, obviously, but we know, of course, the history and everything. And I felt really very small, and I felt like everyone was looking at me because I was American. But there were lots of people who obviously had been had experienced the war, and they were there, and they were praying, and they made me feel comfortable, and we all prayed together, and there were all of these ikebana peace birds hanging from the shrines everywhere. And it was all about making a prayer and attaching it and letting it go. I brought some incense. Incense is everywhere. There's multiple different religions in Shintoism and Buddhism, and I think incense, I believe, is symbolic of carrying your prayers, you know, I believe, I don't know. I burn incense all the time. It's also used in Catholic faith and Greek Orthodox, a lot of different faiths, but that's what you're smelling. So these families and I kept in touch for many years. They came to visit. They came and stayed at our house. My mom is here, and I think she instilled in me a real love of traveling. And I'm sure it was really hard to put a 17-year-old kid on a plane. But on the way back, what was I wearing when I got off the plane? A kimono. I sat on the plane in a kimono. I don't know that I would do that today. And I got off the plane like this, you know. And of course, it was a great experience. But I encourage you to travel. Americans are very... we don't travel like other cultures travel. And I think I read a stat that only 20% of Americans have passports, which is really sad. I think we would be kinder, gentler, more loving people if we traveled. And you can travel really cheaply now. And so I was talking to a friend of mine, a new friend I just met, and she said, I'd love to go to Japan. And I said, go to Groupon, click on Getaways, and they have Japanese trips all the time, and they're great. I went to China on a Groupon Getaway for $2,000 for over 2 weeks, including airfare. You can't go to Disney World for that. So I encourage you, go see Japan, go travel, get out of your comfort zone, and you will not be sorry. Thank you for having me.
And I didn't do a proper introduction of Pam Lewis either, because Pam was one of the founding board of Sister Cities, weren't you on our board?
After Doug was before me. I was alderman, so I was appointed by the city to be the representative for the city. But this passport series was actually my idea.
Your idea, that's what I was going to say. I
Thank
just
you for
found out.
coming.
Pam started, it was her brainchild to start a whole series for our city to introduce the international cultures. So thank you very much.
Well, thanks for having me.
And she brought a lot of these neat things and kimonos that are hanging.
I want to say one more thing real quick. So there's a woodblock print over there. I literally took it off my wall. I have one room in my house, and the whole room is just Asian art. And I was presented with a Japanese tea ceremony kimono, which at the time was 25 years old. So that was back in '76. So it hangs. I said, well, someday maybe I'll have a room where I can hang this kimono. So I built the whole room around the kimono. But interestingly enough, you know, Japan, China, the East was opening up to Europe, and who was influenced very strongly by Japanese art and culture were the Impressionists. And if you ever go to Giverny and visit Monet's home and his studio, there are woodblock prints everywhere. So it's just the repercussions of this culture is very, very strong, and still we experience the beauty of the Japanese culture.
True, and actually I had said to Yoko, I think the most famous Japanese name at the moment is Marie Kondo. Does anyone tidy their home a la Marie Kondo? No, yes, I see people. She wrote the book on tidying your home, and she has a TV show now, and I walk down the block. Like, no, well, it's different than feng shui, but I was walking, yeah.
She's like an anti-hoarder.
Anti-hoarder, get rid of everything.
Minimalist.
Yeah, minimal. And I was walking down my block recently, and someone was cleaning out their garage, and I said, oh, it looks like you're working hard. And they literally said, I'm Marie Kondoing my garage. So she's made it. Okay, thank you so much, Pam. All right. Thomas, come up here. This is Mr. Thomas Ishii, and he has an interesting background also. I'm going to let him tell you his background, but I also, after he does that, he's going to be our final Q&A. If there's any other questions you have, please ask Thomas, because he's been... he knows it all. Ask Thomas. We're going to start a new series, a new segment. Ask Thomas.
Hello, Thomas Ishii. My real name is actually not Thomas. It's Tomohisa. But when my mother actually studied in Chicago back in the, I guess, 70s, when she was here, she decided that, you know, her kids are going to have an American name, because she went through the same thing. Like, you know, when she moved to Chicago, nobody could say her name. So she's like, when I have kids, they're going to have American name, even if it's not legal at the time. So I've been going by Thomas since 1989 when I moved to Nashville. I didn't speak a word of English, so when I came off the plane, everything sounded like, seriously, like Peanut, you know, like the show, like Snoopy. Everything was like, wah, wah, wah to me. I couldn't understand a word. So, and the first thing, my parents, we didn't even have a house at the time. So it was like, we're gonna stay in a hotel for a week, and then about that time, our house will be ready to move in, so we will move in. So I go from the airport to the hotel, Vanderbilt Plaza, and from there went to Sportsman's Grill. But at that point, jet lag hit me so hard, I don't remember anything till the next morning at 5 o'clock. So, so I've been in Nashville since 1989, summer, so I've been here for quite a long time. I went to college in East Tennessee. I went to boarding school in Connecticut. But whatever I do is just kind of brings me back to Nashville, Franklin area. So when I was playing soccer, I played at the Williamson County, the soccer complex, when they had the huge, fence, and that's the way I grew up in the Nashville area. So when I moved here, Japan was not very popular at the time. It was more anime and it's like cartoon version, manga, and all those things came in around the 90s. So I wasn't, I didn't speak a word of English in school. And these couple of kids had these Japanese magazines and manga wherever they got it. I think it was like, one of those bookstores that carries it, like Tower Records back then on the West End. And that's where they get it. But they can't read it. So they're like, oh yeah, there's a Japanese kid in my class. I would get him to translate. But I didn't speak English. So it was a problem there. But yeah, so that's how I kind of opened up to a lot of people, was through sharing on my culture. But at the same time, there's one thing that kept me with, still to this day, I get to, anywhere I travel, I'm able to communicate without the language, is I actually play soccer. So when I moved here, recess time was soccer time. It's like, that's the only time that I can communicate with the classroom. And then when I moved to Nashville, I lost in touch with a lot of the friends that I had in Japan. But every time I go back, it's a new experience for me. I would go to different school. So because of the summer vacations long here, I can go back to Japan and go to school for like a month. So I'll go over there, experience the culture, and make new friends. And then I'll go back, come back here, start school, and it's like another school. But it's always a different experience. That's what kept it fun for me. And whenever I was working there in Japan, I have a consulting business. And that's when Kamakura City, close to Tokyo, approached my family to start a sister city program with Nashville. So that's how some of the people that here, consulate general's office, will know my mother really well because she's the most, I could do the meeting, I can handle communication, but she's the people person. She knows how to make connections with people, and she knows how to bring cities together. So it was, my mother doing it, I was just assisting. But I traveled a lot back and forth. And during those travel, I got to take a lot of people from Nashville businessmen to European businessmen to Japan for meetings and go through. And we got to go through from fun experiences like, a lot of people know wasabis, right? So there's a certain moments when you sit down at a formal dinner place and Japanese wasabi is shown when it's actual wasabi, it's not that like a bright green color. And it has a little bit of the skin, so it's like a little grain in it. So it's a little brownish, more white, closer to white. And one time I forgot to warn, and it was famous person named Mike Powell. And right before I got to say, don't put that in your mouth, he picked it up, sniffed it, and put it in his mouth. So I almost started this famous political person from United States crying over a spicy food because I forgot to tell him, you should put that in your mouth. So yeah, I had quite a different kind of experience. I lived here for long enough to be an American, but at the same time, I consider myself Japanese. Actually, Yoko-san knows that I actually been to their office to get my passports renewed recently. So I was in Japan for a month during July, and I have 4 kids, so I took them there and experience my family origins and meet my relatives and all that as well. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, yes.
The 3 characters, sets of characters that the young lady was talking about.
Uh-huh.
Why are there 3? How did they originate? Did they originate from different parts of the country? Do you use them together?
So, it's one of the simplified forms.
The kanji is the oldest character.
Right.
And it came to Japan like about 3,000 years ago.
Right.
No, 2,000 years. Then, well, the Japanese, at that period of time, only the male can write
Right.
novels and stories, but female also wanted to do it. That's why they simplified the Chinese character and make it simple into 48 characters. And then they started using both of them. So simplified by the.
Yeah, that's the most easiest way to explain it. Will be simplified form of kanji is hiragana. Katakana came a little bit later. It's using kind of like foreign words. So like if I have to write, American name, I usually will write in katakana, and that will distinguish from being a Japanese name or like foreign name. So if I'm reading Japanese, I know that, okay, this is someone's name or someone, some place that's not in Japan. Or it's kind of that kind of way. So like the kids will learn hiragana first, and then katakana is very similar to hiragana, so it's a lot easier to learn.
Are the symbols all different, or are you find some the same?
Kanji, do you have a kanji? You don't have a kanji book with you, do you? Kanji, well, we call it Chinese character sometimes because like some people don't understand what kanji is, but kanji is a form with like a different segments. So if you put certain characters together, it might mean something different. Yes?
What brought your family to Nashville to begin with?
That is a funny story. When
She asked what brought him here.
Yeah, the reason I came here is my father started a new work. And he used to work for a Japanese company it's a bank called Mitsubishi Bank. And he had this account with a Canadian company called Northern Telecom. Later on it was called Nortel. And when he was working with them, CEO was visiting Tokyo at the time. And what he was doing was he was trying to find somebody that will be able to speak Japanese, and he wanted someone like that in the HQ. So you would think we would go to Canada, but because the CEO loved Nashville so much, he actually moved the HQ to Nashville that year. So it was somewhere close to Estes Road. It's close to White Bridge Road. It's one of those buildings there, and and then later on they built the big office in the Metro Center, which already gone by now. But yeah, that's how we ended up here. It was supposed to be 3-year stay, but it's been like 30 years and we're still here. So something's good in Middle Tennessee, right? Anything else? Food? Anything? Okay, one thing that I thought was interesting is the slippers. It's so true. Like anywhere you go, anywhere you stay, just remember to, when you take your shoes off, there should be a slippers to wear. So, yeah, I tell this to my kids. So every time it's like, when they're taking their shoes off, it's like, get the slippers on, get the slippers on. When you're going to the bathroom, get the slippers on. Because that's one of those things that you don't do here, right? So it's like one of those traditions that's hard to see. Another thing is chopsticks. Hashi, right? When you go to a Japanese restaurant, you break it. And the first thing that's a no-no that I see some people do is rub it against one another. That's a no-no. And another reason, hashi is another word for bridge, right? It's actually used in some of the religious way of saying is it's passing, the bridge of thankfulness to the spirits that you're eating. So, the grains that you're eating, whatever. So if you're rubbing those bridges together, is not a way to handle a bridge, right? So if you see like a little bit of splinter on it, you just kind of pull it off. And then another thing is in Japanese food, if you go to Japan, don't put wasabi in the soy sauce and mix it up. If you do that, it's kind of disrespecting the people that grew the wasabi, right? And then people that made soy sauce. Because you're trying to eat, someone put so much energy into making them, why not enjoy it together but not blend it together? So you put it on, wasabi on like the fish or the vegetable or sushi, and then dip on the side that's not, soy sauce, that's wasabi's not on. That's how you're supposed to eat it. Yes? I get that all the time. So my friends do this all the time to me. Like, they'll text me and I'll look, and usually it's like, so this restaurant opened up, Japanese restaurant, what do you think? So I go check it out. So I've been to almost every Japanese restaurant in Nashville, and I think the most, the price-wise reasonable, and I could take, go all the time, will be Sonobana. It's on White Bridge Road. It's in Nashville. That's probably the most reasonable price one. And if you were in downtown Nashville area, there's a place called Koto. That's been around for a very long time. It started by a Japanese gentleman, and he still runs it. And his wife is Korean, and she makes the meanest kimchi, like chilled noodles ever. It's the best thing you can ever have in the summertime. It's not Japanese food, but it's definitely good.
Have you been to the restaurant that's at the end of Ward Circle off of American Way? We had a friend that Kohi Fukumoto from Japan
Right.
working for Bridgestone, and he would take us and he says, "This is the best."
I would definitely say
You been there?
it's definitely a good place to go. It's just that it's sometimes price-wise, it's kind of hard to go sometimes. But I definitely one of the places that in this area I would definitely recommend there as well. I can't remember the name of the restaurant. Yeah, I have so many areas, but I definitely would. Another thing is, definitely try Japanese food and see what you like and what you don't like. And in Japanese culture, if a foreigner tries the traditional food, it means a lot to them. It's kind of showing respect by trying. So if you can't eat it, they're not gonna look bad about you at all. It's that trying, that effort. It looks like you're trying to accept that cultural difference is what's very important. So if you have chance, yes.
Just one comment, I'm surprised in all the presentations, the one word that wasn't mentioned is what the Japanese people really represent. In my mind, I've been there just once in December of 1982 for work, and I thought it was courtesy. If there was ever anyone that represented courtesy and caring, I thought it was the Japanese people.
Definitely. I would think courtesy also fits into the respect. They show respect in different ways, especially courtesy is part of it.
Anyone wanting to visit, it's the easiest place in the world.
And you know what's cool is Google Translate. It does a pretty good job. And there's apps for Subway that if you want to get on. So you got to do is type in the location you want to go in English. And it'll show you exactly how to get there and which station to get off and how much you have to pay. So everything's really easy. And, like the presentation, train is like on the dot. So if it says on, like in the thing says like, 9:48, you'll get there 9:48. If it's 2 minutes late, they'll apologize on the speaker. So you'll know.
What are some, I guess, I don't know, top 3 or 5 cultural things that stand out that were different for you, like since you lived in Japan and then you came here, that, I don't know, I'm having trouble formulating the question, but maybe you're following on. Cultural differences that you thought were unique that's different from ours.
One thing that I still to this day like boggles my mind is trash. Because in Japan, we separate things that's like a combustible trash and non-burnable, like the raw trash and recyclables and all those. And we have days, like different days that pick, they'll come and pick up each one, right? But here, it's like everything goes into trash and some recycling. And it's surprising how less of a recycling this place does to this day. And another thing is definitely shoe thing. Like, I've never seen a culture that cleans the house so much, but you walk with shoes on, right? Like, it's like, what? It's like, I can't get those two together. It's like, do you want to walk on like, couch or like everywhere? It's the same thing. It's like, if you sat on the floor, that's where your butt's gonna go, so why not, right? So, yes?
I came a little late, so maybe we already talked about this, but could you say a word or two about tea as ritual?
Tea ceremony is something that I am not familiar with, but tea is a huge part of Japanese culture for sure. Here's a funny thing. In Japan, in vending machines, you see more teas than anywhere in the world. So you can find from, jasmine tea and all those kind of teas to Japanese different sort of teas as well. And a lot of the things that comes to is like, it came from China and it became a very big part of Japanese culture. So yeah, tea ceremony, it's a whole nother beast that I have no idea about. It's something that one of those I go in, and because my grandmother knew how it goes, it's more like I watch. It's very beautiful. It's something that if you have a chance to go and see, it's something that I highly recommend.
Is it built around conversation or contemplation or religion or just a social kind of a tradition thing? Or?
I believe it came actually from part of religion as well. So they used to have certain, one of those things that feudal lords has to know how to do as a part to show respect and how to handle things. And if you don't, it's like, playing golf on the golf course for a business. It's like, if you can't do this right, this dude is not right. It's that kind of like, highly respected thing. So, yeah. Yes?
For somebody visiting Japan for the first time, where would you suggest that they go? For someone visiting Japan for the first time, where would you suggest they go?
It's hard to recommend because Northern Island and Southern Island is so different from the main island. So if you were, let's say you're visiting sometimes around July, June, sometime like that, I will highly recommend the Northern Island because they have a lavender festival and it's beautiful. And the food there, the weather there is just great. And if you like the beach and if you like to see amazing ocean, go to Okinawa. that area is just, I mean, the water is so clear and it's beautiful. And if you like to do hiking and do some, like, you know, regular tourism of the city and stuff, mainland, I mean, seriously, you're so close to the mountains. It's easy to travel. If you stayed in Tokyo, it's very easy to travel up to the mountains and back. So you can go to, you know, Little Ocean here, go to the mountains. It's definitely, Tokyo would be a good place to start. Yeah, did you go to Nikko?
Maybe,
It's amazing place too.
if that's where the snow monkeys are, then we.
Okay.
I think, well, I think that we need to wrap, but this is, Pam, did you have one other story you wanted to tell quick?
I'll tell two other really cute stories. One was in a movie theater, and we were getting ready to watch a film, and all of a sudden I smelled like this really pungent odor, and I was like, what in the world is that? And there was like crackling, like a potato chip bag being opened. Dried fish and dried shrimp, and that's what the Japanese eat instead of potato chips. And so it was, the whole theater smelled like fish. Really strong. It was interesting. It was very good. I mean, I tried it. And the other thing is, I'll tell you one funny protocol story. So that you remember the Gaeta story with the blisters and all that. The same night, we get to this restaurant. We take our shoes off. I'm like, checklist in my brain what I'm supposed to do. Sit down. And of course, there's a way to sit. You're supposed to keep your legs together and you kneel. And men can have their legs apart a little bit. And you sit down at this traditional table. So we're there for quite a while, and my legs are asleep. I mean, I am like getting stars on my legs. I am really uncomfortable, and they're trying to tell me it's what to do, and I'm like, oh, it's okay, because I don't want to be an ugly American. For an hour and a half, I sat there. I did not realize that everyone else at the table, there's a well under the table, and they had their legs in the well, and I'm sitting there trying to be really good. So anyway, go visit.
Yeah, oh, it sounds like it. Now, I just want to say thank you again. As you're walking around, look at the beautiful items. Stay up here because you're going to be called up in a second. I'm going to be giving my guests gift certificates. But don't forget the pretty jewelry, and don't forget you could get a bookmark. But I'm going to stop them for 1 second because I also have certificates for everyone who helped today as presenters to say thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to teach us. And I have, speaking of food, my favorite local place in Franklin is right by the Kroger over there by Independence Square, Sakura. And it's owned by a local Franklin family, the Lees. And so I got each of our presenters a little gift card to have lunch with you and a friend at Sakura for a thank you, because they're very nice. So I'll give these to you after, because you're all busy. But here, Meg, come on up. And I just want to say thank you all for coming and staying, and for your questions, and for joining us, and for your support. And if there's anyone here who is from another culture who would be interested in doing a passport, they're not all this elaborate, but we got pretty elaborate today. But please let me know, and we'll get you out there. Okay. Thank you very much.